Chapter 20. Time was not functioning. It stopped. Literally. Jade looked down at Traveler, trapped, being drained by bizarre, archaic-looking technology. She sighed. Jade felt that she didn't belong here. Like she was in over her head. Valentine, Kane, Kerrigan were stopped in their attempts to grab her. Jade tried in vain to release Traveler, then dropped her head on his chest. Jade stood, walking around the timeless warped room. Every crevice and every corner in this reality had frozen, mid-place. Nothing moved. Time was locked. She made hard, compact fists and raised them to her eyes. She kind of laughed for a second, then she cried. Then she looked around and shouted at the room, yelling at existence itself.
"What the hell am I supposed to do?"
Quiet answered her. Solitude. Jade walked to the tapestry, tore it down. There was a window. Out in the world, this world, Valentine's world, it was dark, looming, a travesty. Everything bled dry, all feeling and security gone. The streets were barren, the skies were endless gray. X8s occasionally were frozen in place on the sidewalks. No people. Not really. The way Valentine preferred it, apparently. Debris, detritus, was calm on the ground, in the air, unmoving, unchanging. Jade figured this place, this sad, gray world of Valentine, definitely shouldn't exist at all. The world just should not be like this. Jade tied her hair back. Now, what was she going to do about it? The clapping behind her took her by surprise, shocked her, knocked her breath away. Jade yelped as she spun around. The cavernous, medieval chamber of Valentine's Sidrat was completely frozen. Balls of flame emitted light and heat without moving in the torch handles. Dust was still stuck in the air. There was a giant ebony obelisk thousands of years old. An older man, dressed in a fine black suit, stood beside it, finishing his slow clap. The man in black ran his fingers through his thick salt and pepper hair. He slowly took a step down into the recessed throne room, his footfalls echoing.
"Who are you, and what is happening here?"
Jade crossed her arms, stared at this stranger in black.
What is happening here, Jade? Is that you just released your powers for the first time?
The man in the black suit had a gravelly voice, yet, somehow, it was familiar to Jade.
That Time Lord biodata extract device around your neck.
He pointed, then slapped his hands together with a loud clap.
Focused your emotive, cognitive, and temporal crisis into a single whiplash of time.
So this won't last forever?
Not at all. It'll be unfrozen in a few minutes. Actually. And I need to get you and your friends back home, now don't I?
The tall man in the black suit let out a deep breath as his chin fell on his chest. The obelisk made a grinding sound, light emitted from inside. Jade heard the door slide open.
What is happening here, Jade?
The man in black ushered her into the obelisk as he pointed his watch at Traveler. It emitted a green ray which enveloped the unconscious stranger in white.
I am cheating.
Inside the obelisk was stark overhead lights, bright and white, pointing down. Everything else in the inner control room was black stone and Egyptian statues of ancient gods. It looked like a museum. Egyptian artifacts, remnants, hieroglyphic murals were carefully arranged everywhere. The man in black floated Traveler, rope bindings and steel tube and all, into the giant room. He gently floated the unconscious man to the floor, then flexed his fingers and wrist. The green tractor beam from his watch evaporated.
If you don't think I can see what you're doing here, you're an idiot,
Came a woman's voice. On the other side of the museum, in a doorway, stood someone somewhat obscured by the light coming from behind her. Beautiful, wearing a form-fitting dress suit that looked mod, right out of the 40s. Her hair was blonde. She rocked a pair of cat-eyes glasses and bright red lipstick. Jade stared at her closely. The woman looked in her late 20s, which Jade knew meant she was actually in her early 30s.
I don't think so. This was the first time you broke through your barriers. Saved our asses. You know, collectively.
The man in black shook his head very empathetically.
I'll concede that.
The future Jade mused.
So you want me to what? Reassure myself that I turn out okay?
Jade pointed a finger and stomped one foot.
Wait! So you're the one who called me.
Future Jade shook her head.
Don't worry about that. And really, dude, isn't this like...
She made a square with her fingers.
all of this, me, her, here, now. Isn't this dangerous? Right?
Jade cocked her head and looked at her future self quizzically.
No. Yes. Maybe. Does it matter?
The man in black suddenly opened his arms wide.
I'm cheating. Valentine cheated to be created, so I'm cheating to create us.
He was working on machinery in the background.
I'm just saying it's a bad idea.
Future Jade stepped back, the light obscuring her.
I'm the only one who can help. The only one of us who will.
He pressed a hieroglyphic figure, an owl, on a nearby display piece. There was a dematerializing sound she was used to. Jade felt the same chills she felt on Purge.
The only one of you whom will help, yes.
Future Jade corrected him.
I think all you have are bad ideas.
She laughed. Future Jade looked at herself, 13 years younger. Really looked. She smiled.
Something to tell your traveler when he wakes. His home isn't gone. It never was. It's just misplaced. But it's still alive, and she's still out there. The half-doctor never got the chance to tell him.
Jade, clearly exhausted, nodded solemnly. Future Jade leered at the man in black for a moment. She crooked her head to the side, then looked back at her younger self.
I know why he's doing this now. It all makes sense.
Jade smiled at herself.
He is going to be scared, your traveler. Be there for him, but be ready. He's going to change.
Jade then blew a kiss at the man in black and disappeared into a brightly lit entrance on a far wall. Jade trotted after her future self, started into the corridor which led from the main museum, yet the light was too bright. Her possible future disappeared into a haze of illumination. They arrived back at Bad Wolf Bay, the instant that time became unstuck. The man in black had freed Traveler. He was still unconscious, so the man in black levitated him outside. Jade was happy to be next to Purge, trapped though she appeared to be.
They're coming,
the man in black said. He deactivated the device Kane had set in place. The white energy ring disappeared. He turned to Jade.
Purge is drained and thrashed, just like...
The man in black pointed at the traveler.
I'm going to take him inside. He'll be barely awake when they attack. You know what to do.
Jade's mouth was wide open.
I do not know what I have to do. Thank you very much.
Be here for him. Try to help him.
The man in black pointed at her necklace. Jade absently fondled it.
Make the right choice.
He stepped into the obelisk. Jade wanted to ask him so much more, know so much more about what was happening. The man in black, the stranger in the black obelisk, vanished. No sound. Just a gust of wind, and the ebony statue was gone. Like it or not, she was here in this bleak place, outside of Purge. Inside, Traveler was semi-conscious, and pretty seriously injured. Inside, Purge had been drained to the point of near coma, and she was going to go inside. Jade heard a sound in the distance as time caught up. There were engines, far away. Wind was picking up. The air was crisp and cold and salty. She stepped into the column. She grabbed her coat and walked to Traveler, who was crouched forward on a stool, gripping his stomach. His hair was singed. He smelled of seawater. He was waking, his eyes darting back and forth.
What in the hell's going on here?
Traveler asked, looking up at her. The left of his face was bruised, a huge purple swell as a black eye. His breath was shallow as he blinked rapidly. Jade cupped the side of his face.
Hey, I do the asking questions part.
Traveler laughed, turned into a deep, violent cough. Alarms sounded. They were coming, getting closer. Traveler stood to the chrome podium, switching dials, pressed levers. The blue, hollow screen appeared overhead. Valentine was smirking down at them. I don't know how you did it, Jade. You eluded us.
Don't tell me you want me to kick your ass again,
she said with a rueful grin. Valentine shook his head, lost his smile. Rest assured, you'll be back soon. That's not happening a second time.
Incoming aggressors,
Purged announced.
You're right.
Jade grabbed her pulse rifle, cocked it, and let the sound of the energizing plasma rise.
It's not.
She could almost hear the roaring of the X-8's jets outside. Or perhaps she could just imagine it. Either way, she somehow knew when they arrived. They came right in the door. Jade fired upon them as they wadded in. They simply phased through, firing randomly everywhere. Blasts, explosions. Some were mowed down by Jade as they entered. Some of the X-8s stayed intangible, round after round passing through them. They were making their way to the engine rooms. Traveler showed his eyes as sparks and explosions from every direction erupted inside Purge. Alarms were going off. Lights flashed. Some X-8s wandered around like ghosts. Others simply mindlessly firing off their cannons at everything. Jade pumped her rifle until it was empty, desperately reaching for another one. An X-8 ghosted in front of her from nowhere, grabbed the weapon from her hand. Purge wasn't able to create another in time. The X-8 powered his gun and aimed it at Jade. Fired. She was tackled by Traveler. He absorbed the full impact of the blast, knocking her out of the way. She had almost been killed. Traveler had. He almost knew instantly. He was done for. The X-8s grabbed and bitten in half by Cornelius, who had grown to the full size of a small car. The Golden Dragon was defending them, able to barely hold off the swarming monstrosities of Dalek Cybermen hybrids. Exterminate was constantly being repeated, over and over in a disgusting horror of sound, screaming, metal screeching.
Internal control motors are contaminated.
Purge shouted in the intercom.
Wrathful angels have penetrated the engines.
Jade put her hand on her chest, feeling the antique watch. It was warm, vibrating. Her heart just kept pounding. In the middle of this cacophony, this sudden war inside the time machine, Jade felt her strength again, coming from somewhere deep within her. This power she knew she had yet couldn't access. She felt calm. Jade knew what she had to do.
Engine failure,
Purge declared. She took off the necklace, raised it, and concentrated. A brief flash of light, and time was slowed. Not stopped. Not inside Purge. She wasn't that strong yet. But it had been a long day. Cornelius's battle with the X8s had become a crawl. He was slowly yet thoroughly trashing some cyber Daleks. More were coming. His would be a loss. Inevitable. The numbers just too great. Jade stood. She grew angry as she saw several wrathful angels appear behind Cornelius, lunging. She threw something at one of them. Its center turned into dust, a gaping hole, as it slowly jumped toward the golden dragon. She stopped. Jade looked at her hand. She could throw time at them. Angrily, Jade threw 2 more bursts of eons at the other wrathful angels. They were turned into dust in midair, the dust, ever so slowly, cascading down, landing on the dragon, which was fighting in slow motion.
Purge!
Traveler gasped, coughing bright orange blood.
Purge! I'm slaving you to Jade. Find some way to get us out of here.
He collapsed.
Traveler! Oh my God,
Jade gripped the fob watch. Traveler gripped her arm.
I'm scared. I'm so scared.
Chameleon Arc!
Jade shouted.
I'm sorry, Jade.
He was sputtering. His lungs were filling with fluid.
You are an insufficient operator.
Purge replied.
Make the arc now!
Jade cried. Traveler pulled her closer.
Listen, I never told you. I'm sorry for all of this. I wanted to get you back. I wanted to.
He was having trouble keeping his eyes open. An arch appeared over them as they ducked behind the console. Flashes of light, sparks, blasts, explosions, fire. Everything was happening nearby. In slow motion. Just a chaos of violence. Jade wasn't sure how much longer she could keep this up. Her spell, as it was. She could already feel her grip weakening. The exertion of killing those wrathful angels, the sudden expenditure, let her know she wasn't limitless. The power channeling through the antique watch couldn't last forever. Just enough. Just for now.
I never meant for this to happen.
Traveler sighed. Tears carved a path through the char and dirt on his face. He didn't have long, and he knew it. Jade could sense he was terrified.
Your home wasn't destroyed.
Jade said softly. She placed his head on her lap. He looked at her with those tired eyes, still sharp. They glinted. He wanted to know more. Jade nodded at him.
The other time traveler, the doctor you met?
Gallifrey, it's...
Traveler struggled to keep his eyes open.
Still there. I have it on good authority that it still stands. It isn't erased, just misplaced.
Jade smiled, wiped her cheek, gently placed the watch into Traveler's palm. He looked at it. He sighed.
How are you doing all of this? How did you know
Jade smoothed back his hair.
You keep taking on my lines, moron. I'm the one who's supposed to ask all the questions. You're supposed to have all the answers.
He said something in her arms. Something very quiet. Something for only Jade to hear. She nodded, wiped away tears. He pressed the button on the old watch. He grew very still. Jade yelled and cried as the watch opened. A luminous mist drifted to Traveler. She didn't see the streams of gentle light wind around him. Tendrils of soft, vaporous illumination breezily enveloped his still form. She looked up, took her hand away from his face. The diffused blue light surprised her. Seeing bits of glitter. The illumination held him, engulfed him, and grew in brilliance. The light also grew more intense. She recognized the rising radiance. She had awakened it and used it before, when she was focusing her power, her will, through the watch, the ancient Time Lord device. Now the light was taking him over. Doing what? Jade had no idea. It did feel right, however. The next explosion was tremendous. It came from within the stranger in white. Traveler, who had taken her to all these places, shown her all these things, put her in so much danger. He was literally exploding outward. Just overwhelming illumination. Jade squinted against the brightness. Like a nuclear bomb, her ears and eyes were just blasted over and thoroughly with static and light. She heard shouting, a man screeching, yelling. Light was just searing everywhere. Jade lost her grip on him. She couldn't keep things in slow motion forever. Purge sped forward to normal. The battle inside continued. A heated rush, a fury of destruction nearby. Time surged onward as a backed-up flow from a river diversion. The dam was cracked. It was blasted and cascaded forward quickly now. The ridiculous bright light subsided. She looked to see a stranger standing before her, under the chameleon arc. He was short, had bright blonde, almost platinum hair, and a little blonde beard. His suit was blue. Dark, cobbled jacket and pants, blue shirt, azure tie. Piercing, strange, inhuman blue eyes stared at Jade widely. Violence and tremors near. Gunfire.
Who the hell are you?
Jade fell backward. Cornelius, on the other side of the colossal room, was being overrun by X8s. Jade noticed the room had changed. Everything was blue. Some hue or tint cerulean or azure everywhere. She looked to see Traveler's body gone, replaced by this bizarre man dressed in dapper dark. Why is everything suddenly freaking blue? Just all blue.
Where? What? Who are you?
Jade stood, jabbed a finger at the stranger in blue.
Purge?
Purge replied over the intercom.
His name is Capazila Onek Viz Oric Traveler. He is 120 years old.
The stranger put his face ridiculously close to hers. His strange blue alien eyes invaded her view. Jade pushed him gently away as thunderous impacts rang out on the other side of the room.
This is his first of 13 lives. He is a sufficient operator.
Purge echoed.
He is a Time Lord.